Hello, I'm Mantastic'c and Fantastic, and today I want to share with you lovely ladies and gentlemen my 4,000 day box tour. Woo! So, I have been playing this game for a prolonged period of time. It is my longest played game to date, actually, and I don't really foresee anything truly surpassing it. Not every single day has been like hardcore playing, so to speak, but even just the act of logging in over 4,000 times is a pretty spectacular achievement. And I got the 4,000 day anniversary to Madra, and I want to take you, ladies and gentlemen, through a little box tour of myself. So, we are going to start with sorting my box by chronological, and I scroll down all the way in my all folder to go past the stacks of various things. For some reason, the stacks of all the various drops you could acquire take up the space beforehand. So without further ado, my very first raring machine roll, because I rolled I think the Angels start sacked her for plus eggs at some point, was Gabriel. And look at me with these sweet auto healing. I never used this Gabriel. I've never used Gabriel ever when I think about it. So I've managed to pull 5, 6, 10, 14 Gabriels plus the few I've probably sacrificed over the years for whatever rewards I could get, and I never used them. I got one of these Cyclone Devil Dragons at some point. I have 10 of them. There's probably a reason why I have 10. I just don't know that reason, unfortunately. But it's okay. It's not that big a deal. The next big thing, I guess, is the Buff Owl, who I never touched. I used, I guess, him once in a blue moon. Water teams use this guy at some point for an extraordinarily brief period of time. And that's all it was used for. But then the real true breakthrough for my account came through Sakuya when, back in the day, goodness gracious me, this was the form she had. And I don't think she had anywhere near this many awakenings. Definitely not the 7 combo. But this card had a 10-turn cooldown originally when max skilled. And max skilling it was actually a tremendous ordeal. But Sakuya was what truly carried me through the first couple of years of pad when I think about it. It was this form to start, and then eventually it became this form for physical. And then I ended up using the King Bubbly, which you see here, which at the time, this was max skilled. I guess it's changed over time. But this Bubbly was an absolutely vital piece to that Sakuya team because I could give that, 3 times attack buff is what it was back in the day. It was a 3 times attack buff. And it was huge because of these extra little bits of movement time. I was able to basically just piece out a 25 times attack times 3, 75 times attack. Gigantic numbers all around, ladies and gentlemen. So that's truly what carried me through it. And looking at other cards I picked up, I think this was a real Valkyrie at some point. It probably just happened to get evolved. But Valkyrie was utilized quite a bit back then. Echidna, who was sold at some point for plus eggs. Possibly even that Valkyrie as well. I rolled in Hello Kitty when it first came out, when I first started playing, because I didn't have anyone named Mantastic'c telling me what to roll in at the time. So I thought, collaboration stuff. Nope, never was a good idea. Did not use those cards whatsoever. Izanami, Dark Izanami, I should say. She was the first almost looping shield back in the day. And I, again, utilized her on Sakuya teams because that extra damage reduction, which is a mysterious amount not listed here, was able to give me an extra amount of effective health to keep myself going a little bit longer, because old pad was very different than current day pad, because there are definitely times where you could actually survive when you don't kill a floor. Nowadays, it's usually kind of you one-shot a floor or you get one-shotted in return. But back then, it was a little different, and that's shielding capabilities with the ability to just match and heal up made it so you could actually have prolonged fights. Different times all around. I technically rolled, I guess, a Vector Finn pretty early on in my pad life, but I didn't get the Dark Metatrons or Hanzos, so I got a Dark Metatron, actually, but I couldn't utilize them because at the time, Dark Metatron, when she first came out, was very hard to use because attacker types really did not exist back then. And yes, I did have the Grips Rider, Grips Rider, but I just never actually had any other attacker type that was relevant. Orb generation was hard. It was also just difficult to juggle your HP back then, I felt. So it was just simply a better choice to use Sakuya and just blast my way through content instead. Did use Dark Metatron at one point in time. This was probably my starting card if I'm not mistaken, but the original Angel was sold off for plus eggs because back then plus eggs were extraordinarily hard to come by and just better cards came around. This Echidna is not the original Echidna. The original Echidna actually had 297 max skilled, whatever max skill was back then. It was a great time all around. Pulled a Haku. Didn't use her because Sakuya was better. It was basically like I just used Sakuya for the first several years of my pad life, and it honestly carried me through so much content. Like going through here, like DQXQ kind of made an appearance at some point in time. DQXQ back then had different active skill, but basically it was a 16 times attack multiplier, so lower than Sakuya, but the orb generation aspect made it easier to play with. It was more forgiving. I might have touched DQXQ a little bit back then, but I still feel like I kept going back to Sakuya. Had the Hermes. Maybe I used this Hermes with the Gabriel I originally got, but maybe it was used because these latents are definitely like of a bygone era for when, you know, back then those 99% gravities could be survived because Hermes plus Gabriel is no damage reduction tied in the leader skill, so it let me survive those 100% gravities. Definitely a thing of a bygone age. And then Zeus Dios came out, ladies and gentlemen, and revolutionized how we farmed stuff overall. Because Zeus Dios was like the first start of like accessible swipe farming, if I'm not mistaken. And just having Zeus Dios, where's Liu Bei? Maybe the original Liu Bei was killed off at some point. I'm not sure. But trying to figure out, because I have killed off Pantheon cards over time because there were, like, exchanges where you kill off Pantheon cards to get something of value. So there was definitely a Lu Bu at some point in time. I feel like there should be more Zeus Dioses at some point as well. Not sure where they ran off to. Maybe they'll come up in the future. But other notable cards I'm trying to pick out. Well, Yumasachi, Yamasachi. I used this more on Mantastic'c because they didn't have Sakuya, but they had U and Y. And just the fact that they had orb generation made life pretty spectacular overall. Compared to Sakuya, whose gravity was, I guess, nice, but orb generation I felt reigned a bit stronger. And then I pulled a light Kali. Again, those rainbow, well, the 1% resists all the way across, keeps me alive for those 99% gravities. It was a board changer to get me out of problems with Sakuya teams. And at the time, Kali did do meaningful amounts of damage. So that was another significant upgrade for my Sakuya team. Going through, I'm pretty sure I used Pandora at some point, I feel. Just because, like, Dark Robe lobbies, like Pandora, like Red Sonya, Lu Bu. Dark Devils were definitely a thing at some point as well. Looking around, other notable cards. Izanagi, I do remember using Izanagi. Is this... Wow. Oh, there is a super reincarnated Izanagi. Not super impressed with him, though, unfortunately. But at the time, it was a weird way to cut your health for Dark Metatron. That's what I was using it for. Eventually, Dark Metatron became more accessible to build teams for, and Reincarnated Izanagi was a thing to use to cut my health on a regular basis. Zerog Infinity! Who remembers Zerog Infinity? Because Zerog Infinity, again, you can see I had those things. But I had at some point, I have a bunch of Zerog Infinities, and I max skilled Zerog Infinities through Brute Force, like the 20% skill up chance. I Brute Force 2 Zerog Infinities. And I felt super cool with the Skyfall, the looping Dark Skyfall buff, which wasn't really that spectacular. You need 2 Zerog Infinities for continuous uptime. And I guess another system team I did eventually start using was Scarlet's. I max skilled, again, Brute Forcing back then, 20% skill up rate. Painful experience all around. Brute Forced a bunch of Scarlets. Didn't really use the system very much, but I had it and I felt good. Elia was another card I utilized back in the day for my Sakuya team because Dark is not used. Dark to Light, more damage. Actually using Orb Changers to make more offensive orbs was definitely a big deal in old day pad. Kusanagi Hime was a big shield at some point. Again, big shields kept you alive for weird mechanics that would have potentially killed you. Surviving was definitely great. Susanoo filled a similar job in those regards. Looking around for other notable stuff. I didn't use Shiva too much personally, but I know my mom, and Mantastic'c I think is currently watching out there at 3,891 days, has utilized reincarnated, or one of the Shivas. I don't know which Shiva form it was. Maybe it was Awoken Shiva, but she used Awoken Shiva so much when it was a big deal, and that was kind of her like go-to team back in the day. I didn't use Shiva so much as like the higher multiplier Rainbow leads, because back then Rainbow had significantly better multipliers to compensate for the fact that they couldn't concentrate their damage. Now Geno's kind of a weird exception to that rule, but monocolor is generally just easier to play because comboing is easier when it's all the same board. All those Zeus Dioses, clearly, maybe this is the time frame when Zeus Dioses came out. The first one I probably picked up because clear the dungeon. This is probably the time frame it looks like when I had the Zeus Dioses doing stuff, because I obviously farmed it for some reason. I'm pretty sure the original Lubu was killed off. Looking around for other notable like spikes in my pad life for cards that I acquired. Not too many at this point. I'm trying to recall who was used. Light Metatron was definitely used at some point for Sakuya teams. Again, everything is just focusing around Sakuya because it was the original like emergency heal. And Onion, you should have seen my free rolls on Fantastic. You can probably watch the video on YouTube later. Truly outrageous odds overall. I'm currently going through my box for my 4,000 day box tour. Trying to find notable cards that I used back in the day. It's a big box, unfortunately. Trying to find out like standout cards, but again, I feel like I have like killed off certain cards. I farmed up a bunch of Melissas because back then it was a big button back in the day. Button farming was starting to come out. Used this Hino because long ago this was one of the easier like leaders to use to like speed clear dungeons, because the auto follow attack from like their other forms, I don't remember which forms it was, but there were smaller forms, so to speak, like less developed forms that had the auto follow attack, which made it a breeze to farm like those easy stuff. This is one of my proudest cards when I got Carrot, because Carrot was such a big deal back then, because again, back then, not having your like back in the day, hitting large numbers wasn't a thing. Like, no one even came close to damage cap. No one even knew damage cap existed because multipliers were so much smaller. And in order to kill dangerous spawns, you actually had to use burst active skills to greatly augment your active skill or like your attack multiplier overall. And Carrot was the best way to do that. Back then, the Gemstone Princesses were the strongest source of damage augmentation available, and having Carrot was the best one because it was universally helpful. Facet, Silk, Cameo, etc. They used different awakenings, and skill boosts were just a common awakening overall, ladies and gentlemen. So, yeah, decided to utilize the Carrot. Shiva Dragon is poking out. Orpharion is here, ladies and gentlemen. I don't remember when I max skilled my Orpharion army, but I got a bunch of Orpharions max skilled. This is definitely when Mary Dionylus was out. Where is Mary? Mary should be here. Heroine. This was actually a huge card for me. I don't know if you, ladies and gentlemen, were there for that, but I remember distinctly, like, the largest stream I ever had, like, of concurrent viewers, like 550 odd people at one time. And it was for when the original, the original Coliseum debuted. And I used Mary to tackle that dungeon, and I cleared that dungeon with no follow-up attack back then, and you had to dance around resolve, so gravities were a big deal. So I cleared that dungeon the day it came out. It's probably at the time, I think, when Pad was much more popular compared to what it is nowadays. And people were tuning in because, you know, new content, more exciting. I think it also kind of plays hand in hand with, like, the gap between JP and NA may not have been as great, or maybe, like, team building is more flexible, is a bit more fluid compared to nowadays where it's, like, so rigid. You have to just copy-paste teams that come out because there's not much there's not much wiggle room for creating interesting teams nowadays, I feel. And because now that there's probably just more resources, it's just like there's no real incentive to like kind of create cool or interesting stuff. So I feel like that kind of killed some of the North American like joy, because like anything you do is old already. Like it's already been done. So maybe like at that point in time, maybe the gap was smaller, things didn't come out as quickly. I don't know, but like I feel like definitely viewership was definitely higher, but it was an exciting time playing that one dungeon overall back then for the original Coliseum. And Heroine, it was a big deal upon release. I guess the original Ideal was a thing I never got, unfortunately, but Heroine was something I rolled in, got married, Dionysus, used Blue Blobbing, I used Sarasvati, I can't remember who else I used, but had a good chunk of different cards on the team, and it was just a fun thing to play. It was a different play style. Got the Orpharions, played around with Orpharions, didn't really use it truly that great, but it was just something, I guess, to farm and dump your time and stamina in. Is my Edward here? I don't think Edward has come out yet, though, Onion. But I did get lucky rolling that Edward for sure. Let's take a look. This Freya wasn't at the time, but this Freya was used to give myself the... Worlds of Carnage 3 title when I paired with a Nautilus, used Christmas Celica. This Freya was instrumental in clearing the dungeon without a Nautilus. Wild times overall. Another Sakuya that I just clearly invested in more. I'm pretty sure I invested in this Sakuya instead of the original one because it just happened to come probably just more evolved. Looking around for when the big collabs started coming out. Final Fantasy came out. I rolled Yuna. Didn't use her much. I guess I still have a Yuna. I never really rolled Final Fantasy much, like, as a general blanket statement, to be honest. Looking around, Red Athena, I guess. Diao-chan, I don't know when, like, which form I was using at the time, but it was a thing that was quite useful because a low cooldown that could remove some binds and a movement time buff was quite a helpful card overall back in the day. I remember valuing Diao-chan quite highly back then. And then we have Dragon Bound, Dragon Collar, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think I rolled anything monumental from this event. I do have a bunch of knees, I guess. A bunch of knees. I guess it was a big health stick back then. But nothing truly great. I guess some people use the resist cheesing from Kiri. I never actually played those. I can say I'm proud to say I've never had to like subject myself to those like 2-hour clears where it's like Kiri cheesing. I did use like Rainbow Keeper farming, but it was like mostly Sakuya, so it wasn't as grindy by comparison overall. Yes, you're right. It was 2 Diao-chans and Anubis. That was the way to have that like active skill loop for Anubis back then. You're right. Zeus Verse, great farming leader with a huge, at the time, attack multiplier for minimal effort in the sense that all you had to do was be full health. Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, we're in Monster Hunter now. Dragons. I rolled a Diablos upon the original release, ladies and gentlemen. And Anubis Diablos, this is the time frame, ladies and gentlemen, when Anubis Diablos was one of the coolest leader teams in the game. Spectacular, because you could actually hit the big combo count necessary with Diablos' 7x6 board. And Diablos himself did large amounts of damage. The gravity was situationally helpful, but it just gave a chance to use Anubis and actually have him be meaningful. And Monster Hunter, when it first came out, was the first, I think it was really the first event that had truly great weapon assists, like having 30% poison, jammer, etc. resist, blind was a huge deal. It's just something we didn't have access to back then, and it was pretty amazing. Monster Hunter was definitely one of the most game-changing events out there. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, like on my website, which I've kind of neglected in all honesty, but I think the day that had the most number of concurrent views was for when like a Monster Hunter, like I think first debuted or like reran for the first time. Like Monster Hunter was a big deal. And then we come to Edward, the king, ladies and gentlemen, the greatest leader at the time, and I rolled him before the Monster Exchange came out. And he was, at the time, a spectacularly strong leader. Could clear so much content. Now I don't think he exists anymore. But you know what? Edward cleared stuff back in the day. This rule was used for those Nautilus teams at some point, I think. Was it really the first to have weapons? Okay, then even more reason why it was so valuable. It was 10 magic stones, which was expensive, but hey, great stuff. I rolled in Dragon Bound Dragon Collar again. I got nothing truly useful, I feel, so oh well. Looking around. Any other truly no... Oh my goodness, this box is so big. This is going to take a while. Let's keep looking. Looking for other notable cards that I rolled from the past. Magic the Gathering. Rolled a ton of bottom rarity stuff. I guess I have Nico Boris. Didn't really use him much. Have 2 of him. I may have used Joyra a little bit. I may have used her a slightly more on the most recent rerun because she filled that interesting Cleric role at some point, but then just way better stuff came out, aka Kohaku, and it just gets outpaced by comparison. Where is Yusuke? Yusuke isn't here yet. Not yet. Yusuke is coming soon. That was the first monster exchange, ladies and gentlemen. Dun, dun, dun. Gung Ho collab. Nothing that I can see. Where's Yusuke's collab? Did I pass it? Was it above? I passed it? Oh, you're right. Oh, it's so small because I didn't roll much because back then, this was the first monster exchange we could make, and by golly darn it, we all monster exchanged for Yusuke. I think like the whole server traded for Yusuke. No one rolled. And it was spectacular because back then he dealt huge amounts of damage. He had an active skill that could like execute and kill off spawns because it was a split of a bi-colored board. It was exactly all the stuff you wanted. He was just simply the best leader of the day back then. No one rolled. Everyone monster exchange. Great event. That's why I skimmed over it because I just didn't see it. It was so small. Ilm says they tried rolling, but the rem was so bad. Okay, yeah, I skipped it. But yeah, huge step in this game was getting monster exchange for Yusuke. Thank you for reminding me, ladies and gentlemen. And then there was like, don't know, no particularly great event for a while, it seems. Gung Ho collab did not roll at all, it looks like. Good job, me. Terrible event to roll in most of the time. Barbara and Julie. This Barbara and Julie was originally this Barbara and Julie. And this Barbara and Julie was another spectacular leader, which was monster exchangeable. And at the time, she was a spectacular leader who had a much longer cooldown when it first came out, but she was great because killers were, again, you're not hitting damage cap, I don't think, back then still, so being able to hit big numbers on your leaders was important, or just on your team in general, so traded for that card, clearly didn't roll. I just noticed there's not many free rolls back then, unless, or maybe, no, I probably did kill a bunch of my beach cards, so that's probably misleading. There were probably a few free rolls every year, but I killed off so many beach cards to get the 2 of Isis and Nethi. Oh my goodness. Pair of them, beautiful art. Looking for other notable cards that I may have rolled. I haven't killed any Halloween cards, but this is my Halloween roll from back then. Maybe Valkyrie was as well. No, that's the Beach Valkyrie. Never mind. Confusing. One free roll per event? Okay. Well, 1 free roll. Okay. Looking for stuff here. Anything I can spy. Trying to find like the big meta changing cards that I had back then. Valkyrie Seal, this is way too ahead of its time, but it was used a lot on Royal Oak back then, that Valkyrie Seal, so I like that card. Looking here. Possibly the best voice line in the game. Not sure if it is, but holy fish, the first time I heard this, like, if only this card was able to be used more and more on teams, we would just like be like all day, just angry yelling. Like, I'm just trying to think, did anyone have a better voice line, ladies and gentlemen? Single highlight of that entire collab, I think. And then a bunch of junk here. All this junk. Oh my. Street Fighter, Pixel Blancas. I made a team of these, and then I just did it once. I'm like, this doesn't do much, and I just said whatever. There was a time where Akuma was an important card, because, well, I guess this Akuma Beads has always been a useful-ish weapon assist. It's unique, but this card in this specific form was almost always used exclusively as an inherit for ranking dungeons, because the kind of casino Skyfall ranking dungeons were a big deal back then. In the sense that it's like, get a 7x6 board, and then force a 4-color Skyfall, clear the whole board, hope what falls down matches, and your combo count gets raised super high. There was like a pretty long period of time where that was kind of like the meta ranking dungeon strategy. Monster Hunter has Roaring for sure, which I do appreciate. Got a bunch of Pantheons at this point in time. Don't know why I got so many Pantheons. Why are there so many Pantheons? There's clearly no good Godfest because I don't see any exciting cards. Got this Corpse Worm long ago and it's become pretty useful again. So that's kind of nice. Like not even halfway through my monster box. Oh my goodness. This is going to take a while, but this is a beautiful time. All these memories, ladies and gentlemen. There's Amin if Ramen is still floating in chat. Interesting strategy to get big damage back in the day when you're able to get exactly 7 combos and have 3 or less orbs on the board. It was a difficult leader to actually use, but when you could do it, oh my, you do big damage. I probably got a second one because the weapon assist was kind of cool too. Ah, that's a good call, Vicious Soldier. So I'm like looking like this is a long string of Pantheons, and I'm thinking there's no way I could have been that unlucky with my rolls. Hiei was a card for that Dark Orb Skyfall, ladies and gentlemen. Back then, Dark was always good, it seems. Having another option for Dark Orb Skyfalls is pretty spectacular. But I don't think that anything else in this collab was particularly great. It was just a rerun. Got another Yusuke, which was like, okay, cool. And then we're back to Monster Hunter, ladies and gentlemen, and roaring. We're in 2019 now, maybe. I think you're right. I don't think it has Ilmiko. I really don't think why it ran. Did it run again in 2022? Really? The cards feel so outdated already. Like, this looks so old. You could say this is from only 2 years ago? Or 5 years ago, and I wouldn't even know a difference. Power creep was so fast, I feel. By the way, this is where I got many more Monster Hunter cards. So many Raytheons, ladies and gentlemen. But lucky for me, this weapon assist was like an incredibly accessible AoE button. Pretty useful for button farming. Brachydios weapon was a bigger button. Always nice. Just rolling in Monster Hunter for all those beautiful dragons. And then soon, dragons will return to Puzzles and Dragons. Soon. One day. Rolled in Monster Hunter Academy. See, free rolls. Never use them. Will I even want this Hathor ever? Nope. Some event here. There was one of these weapons which was kind of cool. I forgot which one it was. One of these I said was kind of useful. I forgot which one it was though. Oh no, it was this blue one. This was at some point a useful weapon assist because OEs were rare and there was, I think, a boss. I forgot for what dungeon it was, but Balance Killer was a big deal. But this was a weapon I did use quite a bit on my mono water teams, and I remember it being helpful. I forgot which ones, but it was helpful. Gung Ho collab came back. Got myself an Elena. I don't think I really used her much. This Dark Karen was used for something. Was she a leader? I remember I used this Karen at some point for some important things. Or maybe it was just because it was a shield and an attack buff back in the time. Don't remember. But she was used. Gung Ho did make another game, Chronomagia. It flopped. But we got some of the cards here, which is interesting. Orange without the N was used for some weird specific things to make a weird cross of orbs. Weird stuff. It was Altarina 3. Oh, wow. Shust had a big button back then. You paired Karen with Tifa. Oh, okay, yeah, I'm kind of remembering it now. This Dantalion, I clearly leveled up and used it for a brief period of time, and then I switched to something else. I got a phenomenal card here. Should I have ever made these weapon assists? Not missing out much. Not missing out much either. She was at the time, I think when she released, she had so many resists. We were all like, whoa, look at all these resists. She did so many interesting things at that point. Oops. Going around, looking through. It looks like Final Fantasy came back. Got myself a Tifa. I rolled a bit more this time. Tifa, like, oh my goodness. Okay, was it this Tifa? Yes, it was. So, this Tifa was, I think, one of the earlier mistakes Gung-Ho made, so to speak. They made a card that was accessible, one of the best leaders, I think, by accident. Because it was an early 7x6 leader, and I forgot who was on this team, but I remember Tifa was a big deal back then. Like, she was clearing lots of content, like, and having reasonably accessible team at the same time. It was interesting. I'm just trying to remember who was on it. And then, I don't think I really use Tifa much nowadays. There are just better looping shields available, but it's something. It was Karen, Tifa, Bradamante, Cotton, and a Cleric. Yes, that is right. You are right, Onion. I remember Bradamante being a great thing for that team. That was the big highlight, but it was like just a team that was so strong at the time. It was kind of like feeling like Miru. I think we're past the Miru days, but Miru, like crosses, light crosses, oh my goodness. That was definitely quite the joy. These weapons were, back in the day, they were skill boost and 80% resist. There was a time where I was like, roll when these weapon assist cards were available in the Relic machine, because I was like, these weapons are great. And they lasted for at least a couple of years, like a year or two, I feel, in terms of how being great they were. Bradamante, there she is. You're right, Onion. There she is. Bradamante was an interesting card at the time. Good orb changer, had damage, had awoken skill bind. Useful things it did. More Scarlets. Halloween came back. Power Rangers! Oh my goodness! Who remembers Power Rangers? Because this face, Zordon, oh my goodness. Zordon was like one of the best weapon assists because mono water teams were a big deal. And back then, giving full bind immunity and 4 rows was a colossal damage boost. And if it overcharged, huge orb changer with a damage spike. Remember, damage spikes were good because you came nowhere close to damage cap. So hitting a couple million more was a big deal. Yeah, like Zordon lasted so long as a weapon assist that was valuable. I don't understand why. Like, it just never got power crept. I remember this guy had a bunch of healer killers, but I think his weapon was, at the time, not many things had an Evo material killer. So, again, uniquely strong cards back in the day. And then other Power Ranger cards. This weapon assist, it was a Cleric. It had orb generation. It was never bad to have. Like, go Power Rangers indeed. I got the Green Ranger. I used this form a bit at some point because there was a time when this was a big deal as well to have. I'm trying to remember what I even put on the Green Ranger team. That's true, you're right. I mean, they didn't release any other better Unbind of Row for 3 years. Alrighty, looking for more interesting stuff. Power Rangers were a blast from the past. Oh, what event was this from? Oh, I rolled so much in the event, and I rolled absolute garbage. All the bottom rarity possible. Got this one nameless for a skill boost weapon. Woo! This was, I guess, a weapon assist that was used for the blind resist and the L. Because back then, one L was good because having an L on your team was good to unlock your board because orb unlocking wasn't really a common thing for your orb generators. So I was always saying, put an L on your team somewhere. Even inherit an L, it can do things. Those days are long gone, though. You don't inherit an L, you have a natural L to put back your assists. Gilgamesh was an absorption solution for a brief period of time. Ranger Slayer, you're right. Ranger Slayer was possibly the highest damage person at the time. Got a bunch of these guys, never used the Gazlos. Contemplated doing something with it, but then realized it's not really something that's important. Oh. This was one of the earlier 15-15 boards with no animation. Ranking dungeon spam, perfect 10 combo boards with Force Skyfalls. Definitely used at some point. That's why they're awokened and skilled up, because they were just inherited these magic lens. Orphan. I remember Orphan being a thing. I forgot which form I used Orphan in, but he was a thing. I used him at some point for something, or was it even just the weapon assist? I did like his weapon assist back then, because it was a 99 turn Dark Orb Skyfall. I'm trying to remember which form I used for Orphan. Was it this one? I don't recall in all honesty, but Orphan was a strong card back in the day. Wow. I completely forgot like half of these cards existed. The second form. Yes, that makes sense. Oh, I rolled Manaka. Used her as a sub for a while. Eventually, she became a weapon assist. But Manaka, when she was released, had a huge stats. Back then, she actually had one of the best stat distributions because she had relatively low personal damage, but huge health and huge RCV. Her other form was kind of weird, much more balanced by comparison. So it was just like this form was used to like be a big stat stick. No, I have not got to Demon Slayer yet. I'm a long way away, Dukester. Long ways. Nothing new. I guess Erend was a looping shield that was cool at the time. He had 2 team HPs and he had big health stat. Again, back then, anything that broke 10,000 health was a huge deal. Hey, I don't know if Joe Mama Gaming's around, but I think they have Seto Kaiba. They have a thing for Seto Kaiba, I should say. And I remember Kaiba being a great card in Yu-Gi-Oh! Collab. Who remembers Yu-Gi-Oh! Collab? Because this collab broke the game. It changed the game. It was an event to roll heavy in. I never got Yugi, but I did obviously have the Fortress Dragon spam. But Kaiba was a big deal back then because he had such powerful effects and powerful weapon assists. And even now, this weapon assist is still good simply because 3 team HPs is always a good thing to have. Did I skip Common Rider completely? I never rolled Common Rider. Hello, welcome back! I never rolled Common Rider in all honesty, really. Like, I think every time it's come around, I never rolled in it. Or I rolled barely anything. And, like, always something was happening, I think, in real life where I never, like, even reviewed it fully. So it's kind of like the event I never cared about, I guess. But yeah, Fortress Dragon spams, ladies and gentlemen, was a big deal for creating those sweet, sweet, sweet dark teams back in the day. Amazing times. But Yu-Gi-Oh! Collab broke the event. This is why I rolled so much in it. You can see I rolled a ton. And remember, back then, you didn't get to roll that much. So it was a big deal to roll. Joey Wheeler has gone through, like, he's ebbed and flowed from being, like, useful periodically in, like, weird forms. Because he always would do something kind of unique and cool. Oh yeah, reaching damage cap was actually possibly doable for sure. You're right, Onion. Okay, Yu-Gi-Oh! Collab. Past great times all around. Chuan for the weapon assist, because it was a weapon assist with Rose and a long cooldown and bind immunity was very helpful to have. We now come to Sacred Relic, ladies and gentlemen, and I didn't really roll anything super amazing. Like, Grigory at the time was not very good. He got better with this blue form, I feel. Same with Dina, not so great, but Lamp was actually used because he was a transforming card who gave delay, which was unique, because it was a useful transforming effect. And then he became an attack buff with a Cleric. Useful, unique, powerful stuff. I remember using Lamp quite a bit back then. We're still not past 3. Amico, there's not many things past 3 team HP for the most part in terms of like other useful awakenings. I guess you're right. There are some 4 team HP awakenings, but they don't come with like other useful things, which makes some triple stuff useful. Didn't roll much in Sacred Relic. Shivnia was used, I think, for like Training Arena 2. Training Arena 2 I used it for because at the time it was a unique, powerful orb generation system that could level up your cards quick. We're at Krishna, ladies and gentlemen. Getting a bunch of Krishnas. There was the Halloween event. Alice was used. She was haste, which was weird, but at the time it was necessary. It's kind of weird seeing haste on a base active skill, but it was just so rare back then. Looking for other notable stuff here. I do have this Glacial Tomahawk. I don't know. I used this was, I think, this is what eventually passed Zordon, I think. Or actually, no. When Yuri came out, she was the same as Zordon for some reason. Had the same awakenings. They had the same bind immunity 4 rows. I do remember using in images like Yuri, Yuri's image, but it was actually Zordon's weapon assist. They were functionally the same weapon assist. I remember that. Anything else truly great here? Nothing I'm really remembering. I guess Satan for like button farming and swipe farming at some point. They came way later. Okay, but like whenever it got the weapon, it was on par, and I remember using them together. Grimjaw was at some point a button, but by the time I got him, I had other buttons available. Gung-Ho collab again. Forgetting about Gung-Ho collab again. This was a great weapon, Amakazumi. Bind immune, triple team HP, super rare and valuable. Was a big deal when it first came out. It was a big deal. Here's a Lubu. I'm pretty sure this is a Lubu I started utilizing with. Was it from Gung-Ho collab at some point? Like eventually there'll be another Gung-Ho collab where I think I got 2 like Ao Shikigamis, and then I abused them heavily. Dun, 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 dun. Fox has got no changes and still constantly... Yeah, like Bind Immune, triple team HP. It's a thing. It's useful. Like, I feel like with Weapon Assist, because they started Weapon Assist with very few Awakenings, they can have a slower release of power creep. Because as long as they don't give too many Awakenings, everything's kind of similar strength in a sense sometimes. Yeah, the high cooldown definitely made Amico better for sure, Ilm. Definitely. What collab was this from? I didn't roll much. It wasn't a collab. Barely touched it. Kind of ignored it for the most part. And then I have Whale Doors. Whale Doors were a thing back then, if anyone remembers. Evangelion, that's right. Not that important to me. Whale Doors were a thing. Looking for other notable cards here. Wrath. Sin Dragon Key Heroes. Remember rolling for all these lusts? Oh my, so much lust, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, so much pride. So many dumb, silly eggs I rolled to get not necessarily the top stuff. I did get a feral. I barely used them because I couldn't, like, I think they were a 3-turn cooldown back in the day. So I had one feral and it just wasn't enough to create the system. Gillian, was he always 3 turns? He always was 3 turns. I had a way to use Gillian because I believe I got 2 Gillians back then. So yeah, rolled a ton, got a bunch of like Sin Gore Phase or whatever. I don't know, doing those events. Ukes was a thing I used quite a bit as a leader. I actually had the 2 Ukes for the system, so I was able to play around with it, and then it eventually just simply became weapon assist. One day, maybe we'll come back and get relevant buffs. That'd be pretty cool if it did. Purple faces. Oh, I never made that one? Surprising. Never made it. Never thought I needed it, and I was probably right. Looking for other interesting cards here. Whatever. King pouring for no more no. For some reason, I have 112 pourings. Don't ask me why, but I just do. Fagin Rye as a weapon assist was another big weapon assist where like everyone would trade for Fagin Rye just for that weapon assist. I don't remember when that weapon assist came out, but it was a weapon assist that was used consistently for a long period of time because it had skill boost, double team HP, and a single cloud. Great stuff all around. Looking here, don't think I rolled anything particularly great beyond Sena, which is pretty insane, and now I have way too many Senas. But they become great buttons, they're great weapons. Sena has always been a good, useful card. Kukan, not so crazy. I did trade for a Gremory because at one point she was a good option, I think, for Sena teams, I think. Or maybe just her stats were so meaty. This Raijin weapon assist was a big power spike for Rainbow teams if you can work around the negative skill boost. It gave so much damage back then. Like, it was rare to have that much damage from a weapon assist. Some Fujins. Yuri Shaw, looking for new stuff. I am scrolling possibly too slow. Another common rider, and I'm just going to say that I skipped that event again like I always do, it seems. And hello, Deck. Welcome back to the stream. You just arrived for my big box store. I got some pen draws some point in time and still have them. Those pen draws have lived a long, good life. Durand was a thing, ladies and gentlemen. It was a systemable card that was farmable that was pretty strong. Like, I remember using it for, like, World of Carnage something. 1, possibly. It was a thing. Avalon Drake also was pretty cool back then. Avalon Drake almost was cool again. Oh, this collab. Oh, I rolled so badly in this event. Like, so badly. All the bottom rarity you can imagine. Got 1 backpack girl. Did have triple skill bind resist, which was pretty rare. Did I use a Nautilus? I'm not even sure if it was. Oh, was it from when we got the first set of Revendraw rolls? Oh, that makes sense then, Onion. Wow. Huge showering. Okay, eventually I got better rarity stuff. I got the Crab Girl. I call her Crab Girl because she actually has crab in her name. And 1 turn cooldown was a big deal. And extra orb generation, she was a leader. I always had a bias towards blue teams, so I obviously used blue teams anytime I got a chance. This hand I remember being kind of interesting, but this card, I utilized her as a sub because big shield, attack buff. It was just good stuff to have back in the day. There's that backpack. Didn't use too much beyond, I think, this Demon Sword. Is this Demon Slayer? This guy was used so much as a sub. So much. No, this is not Demon Slayer, sorry. This is Monogatari. Yeah, it was terrible to roll. Big deal. Cleric with damage, with lots of skill boosts, with resist. He was like on every single dark team for I don't know how long. Like, he was just used constantly. Great times. Back to Monster Hunter, ladies and gentlemen. I like Velkhana because it was blue, it was a dragon. I could use it as a leader because back in the day, Velkhana was, I think, the meatiest or tankiest leader back in the day. I think this leader skill is so outdated, but I think it was the first card to have more than 4 times effective health. I could be wrong. There was something about it I remember that made him, like, super important as, like, something that was so much more durable. Yeah, okay, it was like a whole year. Yeah, it was like amazing, Onion. Weapons are still great. One day, Velkhana will rise again. What a good roar. Good roar. Yeah, you're right. HP and a 35% shield. So, like, it was just a thing that just didn't exist back then. And thank you, Dingo Dante. I appreciate it. But yeah, more Monster Hunter rolling. I picked up this. I did remember using this Lakshmi as a looping shield for a while. I forgot which red team it was used on, but it was quite a helpful thing to have. Oh, I guess this is when Guilds came out, ladies and gentlemen. So that's what? World of Carnage 2? Yeah. What was farming World of Carnage 2? Don't remember. Some more stuff here. Nothing that I can see. It feels like I'm just waiting for the collabs. Oh, all those King Pourings, or Masterings, I should say. This event here, this is Demon Slayer, ladies and gentlemen, and Tanjiro. Back then, I got Tanjiro, and I got so many of these guys. And you know what? They became great buttons, even though I have way too many. But we got to Demon Slayer, Onion. Here we are indeed. This was a cool weapon assist, I guess. Kind of-ish. But Boar Helmet, oh my goodness. Ignore the 7 combo, and this has not really changed much at all, I think. Like, Boar Helmet was the best weapon assist for I don't know how long. It was just everything. It was haste, it was bulk, it was skill boost. It was just everything. And I got so lucky getting him. Got 2 of them. It was 2 turns at the time, but it was still 2 turns of haste, yeah. Well, no, it wasn't 2 turns of haste. It was like 2 turns of absorption, but absorption and inherits were rare back then. So he was just doing so many things. Every team used it as a Fujin, exactly. Because, like, who wants to run a Fujin when you could just have that instead? So Demon Slayer brought us Tanjiro. It also brought us Boar Helmet. Those are the big stuff. And somehow a Mikage is sliding in here. I don't know how that happened, but Mikage is in here now. I guess it overlapped with the Demon Slayer event? Question mark. But yeah, getting a Tanjiro. At the time, Tanjiro was a leader that was spectacular. And then it became a weapon assist that was pretty good. And now it's a pretty good weapon assist, especially with this killer buff. 5 times damage against certain spawns with damage capping, especially if you transform and don't damage cap break. Big deal. Celica, definitely utilized on that World of Carnage 3 title team. Albrecht was kind of a thing, I guess. Chun-Li, blue cleric. Yeah. Sena and Tanjiro were the pairing. Yes, that was it. Alina was once upon a time... I think I had Alina for that title challenge, thank goodness, and she was a vital part for it. Like, Alina was a vital part for the original World of Carnage 3 challenge because I was lacking a Nautilus. One day Alina will get buffed. One day. This is Street Fighter? Yes. Didn't roll much again. Nothing notable there. Looking for this. Gung Ho collab comes back. I always rolled a little bit in Gung Ho collab, it looks like. I guess back then Gung Ho collab came back on a regular enough basis, and it also meant that the cards got buffed often, which meant useful to roll. Like Rudra, this card was useful at one point for those mono fire teams with all those tacos and blinders. As big deal. Big deal. And then Gung Ho Belial. Oh my goodness, who remembers Gung Ho Belial? Because she was definitely a game-changing card. Why? Well, she was the best cleric in the game for I don't know how long. Because even though you cut your health, you heal back up to full health with virtually no effort. The Dark Belial did so much damage for farming that it made her great. And then her weapon assists were also pretty good too. I just never ended up making them because I always kept using them as subs or assists or subs or leaders. I guess it does a few things. But like, point is, Gung Ho Belial was a game-breaking cleric. And like, I don't know how long we used her for, but it was so long. You're right, Dingo Dante. Devil typing also helped. And that's awesome deck over 400 stones. Well done. Got Sloth. Used him briefly. Just more Sin Dragon Key heroes. Nothing truly noteworthy. There's when I got my first Nautilus. And I felt so good about myself. And then Natsuro. This is my first Natsuro. She was... Was it Natsuro with Velkhana? I'm trying to remember who was used with. But Natsuro was a spectacularly great leader. I think it was with Velkhana. I could be wrong. It was. Okay, perfect. Yeah. Natsuro smashed through stuff. That's what I eventually started farming World of Carnage 3 was with Natsuro. Nothing here. Royal Oak came out. Royal Oak was also another great pairing option. I eventually got some great stuff then. This card here, I didn't use that one. It was the other one. Yu-Gi-Oh's back, ladies and gentlemen. Still never rolled Yu-Gi. But more Joey Wheelers. I'm getting hungry. I should eat something. Cyber N-Word. What was this collab from? It was from something... Is it Gung Ho collab? It was something. Duel Masters, maybe. Don't know. Didn't roll that much. Oh, yeah. Genmu Weapon Assist. I don't know if this card is tradable, but I made an effort to get it because it was one of the first 4 turns of haste cards. Angel Woman is what deck loves the most. But yeah, that Genmu card was used lots. This Reach Hat, it's become the longest absorption nonsense, like absorption cancellation effect in the game. It was a useful card to have because it's always nice to have excessive absorption. My Image weapon, Image was always a good weapon assist. It's still a good weapon assist. This blue Albrecht, I remember it took me so long to get the blue drop. So many runs did not give me a blue drop. And eventually I found it, and it was like, oh, thank goodness. Great Cleric overall. Hey, he's got 8 slots now. If he gets buffed again, maybe he'll see some use. This collab I rolled in, I got, oh yes, Mojito. Who remembers using Mojito with, was it, oh, who's the guy, Yuji, is it? Yuji, yes. With Yuji. It was a team back then, ladies and gentlemen. Definitely using the Aragi, that dark cleric from long ago, constantly, because he was the best cleric forever. I do have one Gojo. Maybe, like, the Gojo blindfold is good, but I feel like I probably should just leave it in this form to remind myself I have this weird orb generator. I think a lot of crowns from ranking dungeons were acquired through having multiple Gojos, which I didn't have. Dun, dun, dun. Oh yeah, he needed Belial to transform. You're right. I had to cut my health Planarian. You're right. I cut my health, then I could transform. It was a weird transformation requirement. Got my first Halloween cotton, and then eventually I got a whole t-shirt worth of cotton. 5 cottons. Does big damage. I did use her on Daytona teams, but I don't know when my Daytona is here. Oh, Avan. I tried making this card work. The Book of Avan was probably the good thing. It was good back then for the haste and the L. Back then, an L on a weapon was a good deal. And then Leona was used quite a bit. I distinctly remember Leona being used for quite a long period of time, actually, ladies and gentlemen. Like, quite a long period of time she was used as a cleric, because just optimized stats, lots of skill boosts, useful resist, huge healing potential. Still good, because, like, the meta cares about people who are good at what they do. Like, 3,200 RCV? Holy fish. Yes, I'm using these RCV bonuses, but still, a large amount. I got Mist Verns. I used those things for some dark swiping-ish team. Yeah, kind of like Kohaku Onion. Kohaku's going to be good for I don't know how long. Like, it's going to be hard to supersede them. Halloween Chakiel was a great looping shield back then because it was rare to have that much damage through a useful card. Still lots of damage through a looping shield, actually, but there are other options, especially with the Nobunaga Nohime duo. That's also a looping shield, but 40 instead of 35%. It's a big difference. It doesn't sound like much, but 5% is a big deal. Oh, this is when I farm my Yin and Yang dragons. I was proud of farming it, and I never really used it. But I got 4 of them, so, you know, clearly I played that dungeon a few times. Using my little Hello Kitty, big deal overall. Hello Kitty made a big difference. This weapon assist was also useful at some point. Not so much nowadays, this Crusader, though. Oh my, pouring. Clearly I played that dungeon a few times. More Halloween cottons, nothing standout noteworthy, I feel, though. Didn't really use any of these cards that much, to be honest. I did use Christmas Osiris quite a bit, though. He still has huge skill boosts. He puts back your assists. He was a universal buffer. He was surprisingly good back then. It'd be nice if he got buffed more, but I don't even know how he would get buffed more, because there's no, like, unless they make bigger skill boost awakenings, he's going to have a tough time getting buffed relevantly, I feel. Christmas XD was, I guess, used a little bit every now and then for penetration on a low cooldown of a bunch of resists. More pourings. Woo! Clearly I like that dungeon. Got some Daytonas, ladies and gentlemen. Bird's the word. Oh, getting the silver rem draw was a big deal because the 4 draw was an elusive weapon assist, I feel. I got this Vione. She was an incredibly useful cleric for a long period of time. Now, her damage is too low to be relevant. She needs to condense and change. But Draconic Orchestra is a Gung-Ho owned event, and Gung-Ho is not really bringing back their own IPs as much. Tennis collab. Didn't roll much in tennis. Didn't roll much that time around. I rolled more, I think, the next time. But I never really got any of the big tennis cards, I feel. Or maybe I still have tennis rolls here. I never honestly use my tennis cards that much, except for this one weapon assist. This weapon assist was the only truly great tennis weapon I used because it had the bulk, had resist, had the team RCD, but also 4 turns of haste. Back then, this combination was extraordinarily rare and made it extremely valuable. I guess another thing that came nice was Garu. A bunch of Garus made a great dark team because, you know, deals of unmatchable, makes orbs, low cooldown, happy times overall. Got some blackbirding, more Garus, always good. Got a third one, didn't need it. I remember long ago, like, it was just great to have so many Garus. This card I leveled up thinking I'd use it. I didn't use Shura enough to honestly justify it. It had a lot of resists, which is unusual back then, I guess. Nothing particularly great. I want Akine to be great, but the long cooldown just makes it not great. Oh, got some Memorial to that's 1,000-day Tamadra. I don't know why 1,000 and 2,000 days came out at the same time. I should favorite the. I guess maybe they all got released around the same time period. So we're at least 3,000 days played. So looking at my box, I'm like technically 3/4 of the way through, ladies and gentlemen. Artist came and went. Melty was used to help secure a title challenge when I played with New Year's Reach. Actually, was it like